All right, so welcome. This is Accounting 620. So this class was designed for, this is something I really wish I could have done back in the day when I was a student. Um, this class is an encouragement for us to start working toward the CPA exam now rather than later. And if you do it right, take your time, do a nice thorough job, don't speed your way through it and get lost and just overwhelmed and lose track of everything. If you do it right and take your time with it, you should be able to pretty much sit for the BEC section of the CPA exam once you're done with this course. That's what it's designed for. We are going to cover the topics that are covered on the BEC section of the CPA exam in here. In fact, we're using Wiley's CPA exam test software and books and all of that as our textbook in here. So that's what we're doing. It's an elective course. So if this doesn't sound like, once we go through all this, what all's involved, if it sounds like something you do not want to do or the format doesn't appeal to you, by all means, don't stay in here because it's not a required course. But I think it should be good for everybody, especially if you're planning to sit for the CPA exam. Start now. I mean, we are starting at the beginning, working our way through it. We'll do the same thing in the audit course, beginning to end. So you have a real good opportunity in the MAC or MBA accounting, whatever you're in, to kind of double dip, get accounting credit for the courses and have already studied for those sections of the exam. You won't get a better deal. Otherwise, you're doing all this and then waiting and doing it all again later. That's not very efficient. So might as well knock it out now, right? I have office hours here. I guess office hours won't particularly apply to all the people tuning in online because obviously you guys aren't on campus to drop by on office hours. I check email 150 times a day. So that is definitely the best way to get me. I'll see it pretty quickly and answer pretty quickly. There are times when I may not be able to get to it right then, but for the most part, I'm pretty on it. So email is definitely the best way to get me. If you phone call my office, that's probably the worst way to get me because I roam around the halls a lot. So I probably won't be in there. I'm a wanderer. I'm everywhere. I don't stay put. So phone calls probably the worst way. So yeah, just send me an email. So I kind of already mentioned this. No point in going through all the boring stuff. We are covering the topics on the BEC section of the CPA exam, like I said, beginning to end. So we'll talk about that here in a little more. Or now, how about now? We're on the syllabus. Let's just stick with the syllabus, then we'll get to the rest. But yeah, here are the 5 really, my camera went blurry on me. That is weird. That's whatever. Y'all don't need to see me. These are the 5 broad topics on the BEC section of the exam. Hey, I'm in focus again. We'll dip into that in a little more detail here in a minute. So let's blow past that right now. 3-hour course. So our course policies. Now, these course policies are going to make me sound like a big old jerk. I'm not a big old jerk, I promise. But I am a very overwhelmed person, and these courses are getting big as far as enrollment goes. So these policies wouldn't be necessary if it was like a 5 or 10 person class. You can deal with the different things that come along, but with the way this is, we're getting 60, 70, 80 people in some of these courses. There's like 40 in this one, but we got to have these policies just for me to stay sane and to not have to make decisions all the time. So they're really strict policies, and they should be. I mean, we should be able to be fine with this. We're graduate students, deadlines, we can handle that. We should be able to handle that. But yeah, really, this is more of a thing where, because we teachers can get ourselves into trouble if we start making exceptions, because we make an exception, somebody's going to be like, well, you did this for this person, why aren't you doing it for me? And then you got to do it for everybody, and then the rule's gone, right? And it's chaos and anarchy and whatever, right? So here's what we have to do. There's a time that things need to be turned in. There's no late assignments that can be accepted, but you have a whole week to submit the thing, a whole entire week. Don't wait to the last minute. Everybody waits to the last minute. Don't do that. Turn it in on time. If it makes you nervous, it says, don't wait until the last minute. Something could go wrong. If something does go wrong, maybe it's a good little lesson learned, right? Don't ask for exceptions. I put that in bold because even though I put it in bold every year, somebody asks for an exception, and then I have to be like, well, I can't because I have to do this. And then I've wasted 20 minutes trying to put this nice email together that doesn't sound aggressive because I'm real obsessive about things like that. And I will just kill my time trying to respond to that. So my goal is to not have to respond to emails like that, right? No extensions. You always have a week. Try to get it done early. Don't wait to the last minute. If something unexpected happens, you should already be very close to done anyway, right? Don't ask for exceptions, please. No extra credit. We're busy. There's no time for extra credit. So yeah, and then we'd have to develop some extra credit assignment that 80 people want to take, and we just can't do it. So let's not do extra credit. All right, so strict rules, but really just to keep me from going crazy. I like to keep things nice and neat. I don't like things to become messy, right? So like this, it's not me being a jerk, it's me being consistent and preserving my sanity. Our book, you get a super good deal here. All right, you're getting test prep software for, this stuff costs $850 in the real world. They have knocked it down to $275 for us, $275 for all the study materials for the BEC section of the exam. You get to keep this once the class is done. You get to hang on to that. And, right now they've stuck us into a Canvas course, Wiley has. They'll copy us over to your own thing afterwards, and you'll retain all these study materials that you can use till you pass. So that's awesome. It's a good deal. So here's the instructions on how, but go ahead and do it because we're going to get started and we don't want to get behind. So good, clear instructions on how to do it. There's a little special code to enter in and it'll walk you through. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. So here's the good thing about this class. Our goal is to be ready for the exam, CPA exam. No case projects, group projects, no reports or papers to write. We're just learning this stuff and then taking the exams in here that we can to help keep us on track. That's all we're doing. So you have a weekly assignment. The weekly assignment is to get into the Wiley software and read the sections that are assigned and answer the assessment questions that are assigned and answer any task-based simulations that are assigned and any quizzes that are assigned. That's all you have to do. The software is set up to where you can answer and re-answer those until you get them all right. So everybody should get perfect grade on the weekly thing. So I know y'all can read, but what I have written here is really important. So the reason I'm doing it this way, we got to stay on track. We got to not get behind. We got to not fall behind on this course. So also, if you run into any struggles in any particular areas, you have a chance to let me know ahead of time that we might need to emphasize something in here. So every week, you will turn in a little progress report that lets me keep up with how on top of things you are. All right, and there's a little aspect of babysitting here, I hate to admit. Let me show you what this looks like. But honestly, it just really helps keep everybody a little more on track. So it's good. There's an Excel spreadsheet stuck in the file section of Canvas. I've got our first 5 weeks scheduled out for us here. So module 1, I've kind of got labeled what module it is within Canvas, what week we're on. So we're on week 1. We're beginning week 1, right? So here's tomorrow, or today rather. Now these dates right here are just me kind of pacing things out. That doesn't mean that anything, you're not absolutely required to do this on the 19th. This is just me pacing it, dividing everything up kind of equally in manageable chunks. It's like a nice, to hopefully encourage you to look at this every day. But to, if you're over here on Friday and you hadn't done anything, you're like, oh shoot, look at all that's piled up on me now. So hopefully it keeps you on track, right? This is approximately how many pages it is, just to give you an idea of the length of reading, how many assessment questions there are, just to give you an idea of what all's involved. There's 3 in this first one. Look, sometimes there can be 14. It varies, right? But what you will turn in is this spreadsheet every week, and you're just going to kind of log when you finish this stuff up. I finished this on whatever date at whatever time. If you have any comments, put them in right here. So you'll fill this out every week. So what will be due next week, Wednesday by midnight, is all of this stuff from week 1. So, and like I said, you don't have to do this on the 19th, this on the 20th. This is just me dividing it equally somewhat among the week, right? But what is discouraging to see is, we're going to turn this in on the 25th. Seeing the 25th all across here, that's a bad thing. That's not the way to do this. So yeah, so that's what you'll turn in. So this should be all filled out. This is what you're responsible for week 1. All right, another question. Yes, no problem. Thank you. So yeah, that's worth 20% of your entire course grade, just reading and answering questions. Let me show you what we're talking about. So here's our Wiley Canvas course. It's not our UNA Canvas course. That can be a little confusing sometimes. So we have our separate Canvas course for Wiley. So we got our modules in here. And here's where it all begins, right? So our first section, I've rearranged these a little bit, by the way. Our first section is quality management. So quality management, that's where you'll be. So you'll go in to quality management, and it'll always take longer than it should to load. All right, so you see at the top, here's a video. This is Wiley Instructors. This is a 20-minute video. If you want to watch that, go for it. If you do not want to watch that, no problem, right? Those videos can be long. They can be short. They can be kind of in the middle. They're usually better than not watching. A lot of times they're kind of a waste of time, though. I say if you're going to watch the videos, do it last. Go through the whole week's worth of stuff, then bounce back to the videos, because I don't want the videos to slow you down from getting the regular content. That's my feeling on the videos. I've watched some of them, but most of them I haven't watched. The notes, these notes, yeah. This, so scroll down, here's a little flashcard section that I also never really look at. Here's your content, study guide, the notes. All right, this is in outline form. All the study prep materials for CPA are in this format. It takes a little while to get used to that, or it did for me, because we're used to reading just textbooks that kind of read like a newspaper, but these are in outline form, and that's fine. That's your content. This is the meat right here. So I'm beginning my week, I'm starting. Here's the way I would do this if I was in this class. This is the way I've always done this, studying for CPA exam, CMA exam, CFE exam, all those exams. I kind of study the same way. I've done a lot of them, so I've kind of developed my little routine. I'll have this in front of me, paper copy, because I like a paper copy better. I'll show you how to get one in a minute. I will type out notes as I read this. All right. I don't want to look at this mess ever again. I want to read it once, and I want this in a format that I like. I don't want to see this again. This is a lot. So I'll type out my own notes that will be a little bit more to my liking, in a format I like and appreciate, cutting out all the junk that I don't want to look at again, right? It would look something like this. If I was doing this. I would have myself a little Word document, and this becomes my notes. So I've got nice little headings. I highlight things in green as I do other things and find out that those may be more important. That was me doing something a little later, but I've narrowed this down into one page and a little bit more on another. So this becomes my text now. I don't want to look at that other mess ever again. Now I have this. All right, this is me saying, here's the stuff I feel like is important from that section, and I left out all the other mess. All right, so now I have that. So then I'll have notes on every section for myself. Sometimes my notes on a section are that long. That's one section. That's all I found that was important to me in that section. All right, so that's the way I do. I'll study those. All right. I have this for every section. I pretended like I was studying for this and took notes like I would have, and that's what I'll use in here just to show you what I feel like is important. And that's kind of the way I'll do that. But don't use my notes. Take your own notes. Put your own stuff together. You don't want to use somebody else's notes. It'll help you a lot more to take your own. Now, as I'm studying for exams, I have those now to look at, and only those. I'm bad to get an index card and start writing stuff down, and I'll stick those in my pocket and carry them around with me too. So that's another way to study. You know, you're sitting around killing 5 minutes, pull those out and look at those instead of something else on your phone or whatever, right? Now, as you read this section tonight, hopefully, or tomorrow, go ahead and start making these notes. Put things like that together. Print these out. Keep them in front of you. Carry them with you. Look at them any chance you can. Don't wait until way later to look at them. So what do you determine what is important from this section? What do you do to determine? All right, so what do I do? All right, so this comes a little bit from, so the question is, how do I determine what's important? It comes a lot from my experience in just taking these certification exams. I've taken CPA, I've taken the CMA exam, I've taken the CFE exam, I've taken CFM exam. So I've taken a bunch of these. So you get the hang of kind of that's good testable material. You learn to recognize it. So that's one way. But another way is I've cross-referenced Wiley that we're using with Gleim and with Becker to see how consistently each of those is covered by the three. You know, if you see all three of them covering the same topic in the same way, that's probably pretty important. But along the way, you'll be like, well, only Wiley mentioned this one, or Wiley and Gleim mentioned this, but Becker didn't. So you're like, maybe not as important. And then sometimes you're like, well, this is the only text that mentions this at all. So less important. You can also gauge what's important a lot of times from how often you see them in the practice questions. You know, you see this question 50 million times, probably pretty important. And as we go through, you'll see that. We'll be like, well, there's this question again asked a different way. There's that question again asked a different way. You just kind of get the hang of it with experience, but also looking at the other things. So yeah, that's kind of what I do. But, you know, bottom line is, this is all my opinion on what's important. And I guarantee somewhere along the way on this class, probably pretty early on, I'll say, I don't feel like this is important. And somebody will get a test question on it on the CPA exam. It's bound to happen. But I bet everybody won't get a question on it. So, sometimes I'll say this probably isn't as important, which means it's a long shot that you'll get a question on it. So, all right. But yeah, the key to doing well on the CPA exam is being very systematic in your studying, being extremely organized. You start getting unorganized, you're going to get overwhelmed, and your mind's going to go crazy, right? So be very systematic, be very organized, stay consistent in the way you're attacking each section. Don't have a bunch of unorganized mess scattered everywhere, but everybody has their own method. I've seen people pass all 4 sections of the CPA exam just highlighting mess in a paper book. Never could I do that. Never. But they could. I've seen some people go to the other extreme of handwriting all this stuff and having these little tabs and just, whatever works for you. Yeah, tabs, those start overwhelming me because you end up having a million tabs everywhere. And then what do they mean? You've tabbed everything. But yeah, develop your own method, but be thorough. Yeah, don't haphazardly go through anything. If you're going through something and it's like, this isn't making sense, spend time with it. Look at other sources, ask someone, ask me. Watch the videos too. Yeah, if it doesn't make sense, watch the videos. Yeah, that would be one of the first things to do, because they do explain things pretty well, pretty slowly, and maybe over explain, which is good when you don't know what it is. Yeah, you can double time it and get chipmunk voice going too. I can't do that. But you like to speed it up. I've tried to do that with like podcasts and audio books and stuff, and I just can't.
I have to do it with veterans.
Do you?
They
talk too slow. Oh man. But yeah, spend some time developing a good study process that works for you. That's really, really important. One you can stick with. Okay, so back to this. So that's your content. That's the main thing you want to look at on these tabs. Here's some little true false things, whatever. I never look at them, but they're quick and easy to look at. So whatever. Then they give you the slides that they use in the video if you want a quick look at those. Again, I'm not a slide kind of guy, so I don't look at that. Down here, there are additional test bank questions which you might want to look at if you wish, but I would save that for a little toward the end as well. But the assessments that you're required to do in this class for each one is a tab below each one. So you'll have to come in here. Again, usually takes a little longer than we want it to.
I think we developed the system last time where it's like clicked on it a couple of times.
Oh, that's right. Y'all did do that, didn't you? So this one has 3 different questions. Take your time reading and thinking of a good answer. Don't just haphazardly click through here. That's useless. Try to answer it. You'll learn so much from answering something wrong and being mad at yourself and figuring out why you messed it up. You'll never mess it up again. So if you don't know something, spend some time and think about it, come up with your answer, and then see why you think you're right or wrong. I'm just going to answer A on all of these without reading them because we haven't read any of this. And then you'll submit. And then they'll tell you, you were wrong. Here's what's right. Here's why that was wrong. As you're looking at that, if you click on this one, it'll tell you why that one's right. This is an assessment, but honestly, this is more study material. This isn't really treat it more like yes, you're testing yourself and seeing if you can get it right, but also keep in mind that this is more study material. You're still trying to learn, and this is by far, to me, the best way to learn. The more questions you can answer, the better. Because I can remember specific questions I've looked at in study material, especially the ones I missed, and I remember why I missed it, and I never forgot. So it looks like, hey, I got one right. So I've got 33 on this. Well, I can go back in there and answer them right. And then it shows a 100. So you have multiple attempts to do that. All right, so if I'm done doing that, then I'm like, all right, I've thoroughly handled that section. I've typed out my notes. I answered my questions. I might revisit my notes and make more notes after looking at those questions. Sometimes those questions will cover something that's new that wasn't even covered in the notes. Don't get frustrated with that. Just be like, oh, new information. I'll add it to my notes. So then I'd say, all right, done on 8/19/21, and I just answered my last question and got a 100 at 6:34 p.m. And I felt real comfortable with that, so I'm not going to have any comments. So that, and then you do that for every section throughout the week. Just kind of log in when you did it, just to kind of hopefully keep you on top of it. All right, so during the week, what you'll turn in by midnight on Wednesday is the fact that you did all of that. And what you have to do to get credit is you need to have 100s on all of this that'll show up in my grade book, or in this grade book rather. And then anytime a task-based simulation comes along and a quiz, you need to answer those too. And you get multiple attempts on those until you get 100s. You need to have 100 showing on everything just to have it nice and neat for us. Let me bounce back to the syllabus here. So that's your weekly assignment. So there, that Excel spreadsheet is in files. I published it now, and it tells you what to do. It tells you that when you've completed the assessment in each section and answered 100% on it, that's the last thing you do really. Enter in the date and time. Also for any quizzes and task-based simulations you do, add the date and time on it too. Everything has to be completed by the due date. To receive credit, everything has to be completed and show a grade of 100. The assessments, the quizzes, and the task-based simulations. Unlimited attempts, so it's no problem. And like I said, if you encounter any problem areas, let me know by keying in a comment. You don't have to though. Wednesday, 11:59 p.m. Again, please don't wait till the last minute. Stay on top of this. Let me give you a really, really important tip. Sometimes you don't feel like doing this stuff. Make yourself look at the equivalent of one page. Just force yourself to do it. If you do that, you'll be amazed at how far you'll keep going once you get in the rhythm of it. It's, you know, one night a couple of weeks ago, I had to put that stupid Excel spreadsheet together that I was just looking at. That's a lot of work. I'm like, well, I'll go ahead and do a week one. I did the whole thing because I just got in a rhythm of it. Force yourself to try a page worth of stuff and see how far you go. You'll be amazed. And then it doesn't even feel like work because you're like, hey, I'll keep going. And then an hour goes by and you've done so much work and you're like, hey, nice. And then you feel good, and just try it. It is valuable. I try to do that with everything I do. So that's 20% of your grade. That should be 20%, no problem for everybody. It'll boost your grade. The rest of our percentages is just for the 4 exams, 20% apiece. That's pretty weighty. So study hard. The way we'll do exams, and I mentioned this in the little welcome message that I sent and posted too. All multiple choice, no problems. They're all multiple choice. And by no problems, I mean no short answer type things. It's all ABCD stuff. There's computational stuff, obviously, and non-computational too, but they're just all multiple choice. Everybody gets a randomly selected set of questions. Nobody gets the same exam. Exam 1 is going to cover everything we cover up until we take exam 1. Exam 2, which should be about 4 weeks later, will cover everything for the whole 8 weeks. Every exam is comprehensive from what we've covered the last time to keep us on top of the stuff and not let it go away. So we'll have to study every time, everything. So keep it in your head and don't get behind. All comprehensive. That's worked pretty well, trying it that way. I was iffy at first, but makes sense. I think every exam in every class should be comprehensive, but especially for accounting, especially for us trying to do the CPA exam. We don't want to lose any of this material, right? Typical grading scale. The rest of this is standard stuff. Academic dishonesty, academic honesty. All right, listen up. Please, if you have any thought in your head right now about, I might try to cheat on these exams, you just need to get out of this class. I am a stickler for academic dishonesty. In fact, one of my faculty guys is calling me Detective Department Chair, his new nickname for me, because I've had to deal with so many of these academic dishonesty things. These exams are online. I think people think it's easy to cheat on these, but let me tell you, it is easy for me to see who's cheating, and I am not lazy when it comes to pursuing it. There hadn't been a semester go by that I haven't had to stick someone with an F in these graduate classes for cheating on an exam. And I'll be, somewhat jerky, but really more to keep gathering my evidence. I'm going to wait till the end of the semester to call you out on it. So I'm going to waste your time if you're wasting my time. It happened last semester in audit. This old student, I saw that she cheated on exam 1. So she went through all 4, did the same thing. I don't know. It was blatant. So, F in the course at the end of the semester.
People are getting really creative.
People think they're getting creative.
There's something wrong with it every time.
Right. Yeah. What she did was creative. What she did was so easy to figure out. So easy. So easy. Yeah. So don't think you're smart enough to cheat through all this software that's detecting it. And sometimes the software doesn't, but humans are looking at it and they can figure it out. It's so easy to figure out. I mean, it really is. Now, there could, the way you'll get by with it is if the software doesn't catch it and I don't bother to look. And that's happened because I can't look at all of them. But let me tell you what happened. I've had one situation where somebody cheated and I went back and looked at the class she had with me before and I saw she had cheated there and she got a retroactive F on that one. So, oh yeah. So I say that not to make you nervous on exam. If you're doing what you're supposed to do, you don't have anything to be nervous about. But I also say it to, please don't even try. It's so easy to find. Yes, people have gotten creative, but we go to workshops that we're up on all the ways people are doing things. It's so easy to do. So please don't try to cheat. Please, please, please. I don't like dealing with it, and I'm having to deal with it more and more. Just don't. All right. All right. So that's that. All right. So that's the syllabus, I'm sure. All right. So let's talk about real quickly what we're getting ourselves into here with the BEC stuff. Question. Do we submit the entire spreadsheet each week? Yeah, do the whole spreadsheet each week just to keep it, you don't have to go through and delete what you did last week. You'll just keep building on the same spreadsheet each time. And we're getting ahead of ourselves on some of this, but just to give you an idea of how the CPA exam works for this section. There's 5 testlets. So there's 5 individual sections in the BEC section. So Testlet 1, you got 31 multiple choice questions. Then you'll have Testlet 2, which is also 31 multiple choice questions. And for those multiple choice questions, the better you do on Testlet 1, the harder your Testlet 2 is going to be. First time I took a CPA exam section, I didn't realize that. So I was thrown for quite a loop. I took Testlet 1. I'd studied pretty well, very thoroughly for it. I was like, that was the first time I took one. Like, this was way easier than people led me to believe. So I took a break. You can take breaks. The timer didn't pause. I went outside and sat down and kind of chilled out for a little while thinking this thing's easy. Went back in, Testlet 2 is like, whoa, got really hard. So the good news was I'd done well on Testlet 1, but bad news was I didn't realize why Testlet 2 got so difficult until I looked at the information about it later. So if your Testlet 2 gets harder, you can feel good about yourself. I have had some who did really well, and they're like, I don't feel like Testlet 2 got any harder. But it's like, yeah, you're just so smart. None of it seemed hard to you. So that's what that was all about. And then you got task-based simulations, 2 of those. So these are kind of like problems. You know, we got multiple choice and problems, kind of like intermediate tests used to be, right? Back when you were in intermediate. So you might have responses in the form of entering stuff into a spreadsheet, amounts, formulas, choosing drop-down answers or something like that, or filling in amounts on a form or correcting a document, or, you know, could be anything. So that's what the task-based simulations are. And then completely unique to only BEC and none of the other 3 sections, you have written communication tasks. This wasn't part of the BEC exam when I took it. In fact, it was all multiple choice when I took it. But from what I understand, that is free points. F-R-E-E, not 3, but free. Everybody says, man, those written communication tasks are just money in the bank. Easy stuff, no problem. We'll talk later in the semester a good plan of attack for those. But yeah, there's the tips that you see for it are, you don't even have to say correct things as long as you format it well. That's pretty much it. So yeah, those are easily handled. So what in the heck are we doing content wise? So BEC is just a mishmash of a whole bunch of junk. And if you want to kind of put it into one little phrase, your plan of attack on BEC, the topics are mile wide, inch deep. So we're very broad, but we're not getting into a whole lot of depth on any of it. So that's kind of what BEC is all about. So our first section is just renamed. It used to be called corporate governance. Now it is called a much longer name, enterprise risk management, internal controls, and business processes, which I spelled wrong when I was typing that out. 20 to 30%. You know, they give you these range of coverage, but they're so big a ranges, they don't really mean a whole lot to you. Don't even listen to it. Yeah, so they're saying in here, don't even pay attention to those percentages. Just study the 5 topics and equally well, right? But I stuck it in there anyway. So corporate governance, or it's going to take me a while to get used to the new name, but anyway, it's stuff like internal control, enterprise risk management. Well, that's what it's called now, but it's like, let's see. Kind of the tips you get on this section is to pay attention to things like what the role is of the audit committee, what the role is of a company's board of directors, enterprise risk management concepts, things like that, principles of internal control, types of controls, limitations of controls, you know, all about internal control. Big portion of it's about internal control. Fairly easy, really. section, honestly. So that's one of the content areas. Then you got economics. We're talking principles level macro and microeconomics. You'll see that stuff again. So supply, demand, market equilibrium. We'll have the little supply and demand curves and we'll move stuff and that kind of thing, you know. Elasticity, information about the characteristics of like monopoly and an oligopoly and I didn't like econ back in the day either. I like micro. I liked better than macro. Looking at it now, I like it a lot more. Yeah, I didn't like it either back in the day. I don't think I liked the teacher I had, but we'll see all that stuff again. Principles level stuff though. So supply, demand, equilibrium, all that's a big chunk of it. But yeah, if you've taken an econ class in micro, macro, you're good. You don't, even if you don't have prior econ knowledge, these concepts are pretty easy. So that's a section that we'll spend some time on. Financial management, like you would do in a financial management class. One of the easier sections. We got things like time value of money. You've got like capital asset pricing model and pricing options. Capital budgeting stuff like net present value and internal rate of return and payback method and stuff you learned in cost accounting on that, and financial management, things you've seen several times already. And then things like working capital financing and working capital management, and really one of the easier sections in my opinion. The hardest section to me is information technology, just because nobody knows what to focus on. And when I say nobody, I mean among Gleim, Becker, and Wiley. They all three kind of hit everything differently. So that's frustrating to me. Now, I've looked enough that I think I know how to narrow a lot of it down to definitely look at this, but it's just a crapshoot on information technology on what questions you'll get. Yeah. And yeah, it's just, yeah, it's annoying. In fact, I have a little article that somebody wrote and they said, it's such a huge topic that your CPA review courses can't get into all of it. However, the CPA exam's coverage of IT involves mostly facts and terminology. So the questions generally have a reputation for being not very trying on us to do, you know.
So it's more like common knowledge of IT.
Well, as common as knowledge can be on IT, I guess. And I'm not an IT person, so a lot of this was new to me, not necessarily with BEC, but from other things I've looked at for the first time. I think the CFE is where I picked up a lot of the knowledge before CFE exam. But yeah, I mean, there's just a lot of mess in there. A lot of it's really focuses in on data security and things like that. But yeah, it's kind of easy to tackle those sections of the book. It's just hard to decide, is that important or is it not important? So we'll do our best to narrow it down in here, just keeping in mind that these questions can go in any direction. So just read it and kind of hope for good luck on the exam questions you get. And then the last section is operations management. That's cost accounting. So basic cost accounting, it's things like product costs, material, labor, overhead, period costs, that kind of thing. Process costing, job costing, a little bit of break-even analysis, relevant costing where you're like make or buy decisions and that kind of thing. that kind of thing. Absorption versus variable costing. So stuff you've seen in managerial accounting and cost accounting, principles 2 and costs. So that takes a lot of time to go through. That's the only problem with that. That one takes a lot of our time. So that's what we're doing. Very broad. We're covering all kinds of areas of content, but pretty shallowly, if that's a word, not a whole lot of depth. Here's some good news though. By far, the highest pass rate of any of the 4 CPA exam sections is BEC. 53% in 2017, 59%, then 60, then 65%. By far the easiest one. FAR is by far the hardest one, pass rates wise. This is getting way ahead, but just to keep in mind as you're studying in here, the score you need is a 75 to pass. That is not a 75%. That is a mystery algorithmic scoring method that they do and don't disclose. We were at the AICPA offices in New York on one of our study trips. Did you go on one of those? You did not. Anyway, we asked the question, how does the exam really score? And they're like, we don't know. They won't tell us. So there's this fancy algorithm that weights. Every problem has a certain weight, difficulty weight, and it's just this really complex scoring system based on how difficult your questions are and that kind of thing. 75 does not mean percent correct. You can't interpret it that way. Obviously, there's no penalty for guessing wrong. So guess everything, answer every question. Don't leave any of them off. You got a weighted combination of some kind of scaling of your scores from the multiple choice and task-based simulation. And that scaling, like I said, takes into count factors like difficulty and things like that. And then there's that multi-stage adaptive thing where if you do better on test 1, testlet 1, your testlet 2 is going to be harder. That's just for multiple choice questions though. So that's just a brief little thing about the CPA exam. Back next week, we will go over all of this. For the most part, pretty light content. These first several sections, or I think these first 3 sections are just no data crunching or anything. It's just words. Here's what the balanced scorecard is all about. But as you read through, let me pull something up. Hopefully this will help you not get frustrated. Here's what I need to tell y'all. I got 2 things that I forgot to tell you. First thing, I'll come back to what I was about to say. Within Wiley's Canvas course, if you want a paper copy of the book, which I love having a paper copy of the book, you can click on textbooks and other supplements right here. And again, and you can buy a paper copy of our book for not $100. It's $25 for any of them you want. Unclick these and you can have a paper copy of the book for $25. The book will contain all of those outlines that's contained within each module that we looked at. That's what that is. If you're a flashcard kind of person, they're pretty pricey, but there they are. Here's some other things, supplemental things you can get. Here's a book full of the practice questions, but again, that's already there online for you. So only if you want a paper copy. So there's things you can buy here if you want them, but I think it's up to you. But I do find a paper copy pretty useful. I feel like I can flip a book open and look at it quicker than logging in, clicking over here and all that, it's less effort. Makes you study a little more, or it would me anyway. So that's there for you. Now, let me tell you this, because this is going to confuse people. And some of this may not work out as well as I'd hoped. I got in here and completely rearranged the modules against it. The book. The printed copy of the book is going to be organized completely different. The reason I did that is I want our exams in here to be equally difficult. You know, the way they were, exam one was going to be a handful. So I've got a nice mix of heavier versus lighter topics. So I've got this, because the way I did it last year, we just went in order for the most part. And the first part of the semester was hard. And the last part of the semester was, we were in class for 30 minutes sometimes because there wasn't anything to talk about. But the first part of the semester, I was a week behind forever. So I balanced all that out. So I got our module one was A, B, C, D, E, F, G, module 14 in the book, or the way they had it set up. But I have that as module one.
A
Module.
lot of people drop because of that.
No, nobody dropped. No, I just stayed behind. It was a headache for me. It didn't affect them any. I just hate being off my schedule. We kept the reading going as scheduled, but sometimes we were covering a week ago's reading, and I was just like, this is not good. So we will have all this cost accounting stuff, which will take a while, but then that's followed by some of this corporate governance stuff, which doesn't take that long at all. So I've mixed it up to where it'll flow better. You know, all of these are, you know, Becker covers everything in a different order than Wiley does. Gleim covers it in their own order. None of this builds off of each other, so any order is fine. So I've just rearranged all of this, and I stuck some of this IT junk at the end. If we run out of time, some of this doesn't matter as much. So I've kind of got it arranged for us in a way that I think will be better. I've stuck IT as a part of a few of these exam sections that we're going to do, just because it's quick and easy to talk about as we get behind. So I say all that to say the order is different from the printed copy. I ordered it that way, or I arranged it that way. So here's our second section that you're going to read this week about benchmarking. Let me kind of show you my idea on note taking. And you'll have to use your judgment on this, but I'll be here to use my judgment on what I found to be important too. So you can always go back and revisit. But look at this first section of the benchmarking thing and the balanced scorecard. See all of this that I just highlighted? Talks about benchmarking. Benchmarking is a technique of blah, 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 blah. Why do firms use benchmarking? Blah, blah, blah. They use it to identify best practices, blah, blah, blah. Look at my notes. Benchmarking, comparing your performance to other measures. That's all I found important out of all that mess. All of that. I narrowed it down to one line. You know, you might could add a little bit more to that with the hopes of finding a way to improve. You know, that's what you're doing. You're cheating off of somebody else. Like, oh, they're doing it that way. That's a good idea. I'm going to do that. And you choose somebody that you respect. You know, they're known for doing things well. Ooh, that's a good idea. Maybe we can try that. That's all it is. None of this other stuff. Ask yourself what kind of test question they could ask on all of this. Look at all this mess. All right. So as you don't skip it, read it, but keep in mind that not all of this is going to be worth putting down on paper to look at again, right? But do read it closely, because keep in mind those task-based simulations might ask you to recall or at least try to speak to some of this stuff and come up with your own ideas, right? Or the written communication might as well. But yeah, I narrowed that down to one line. That was my opinion on what was important out of that. Balanced scorecard, I kind of knocked it down to about this. So read closely, decide what's important to you, make a note of that. And then as we talk in class, and I might be like, oh, this is important. then you can go back and add it if you agree, right? All right, well, that's about all I have. Do you have